For every car guy, there's the one. That one special car that's posted up on your wall, or saved as your laptop wallpaper, or a die-cast model on your desk. For quite some time, my holy grail has been my car. Well, sort of.
This is the BMW E90 M3 CRT, and there's a huge portion of you guys who probably have zero clue what this car even is, but just to give you an idea of how special the CRT is, there's only 67 of these made for the entire world, never sold in the United States, yet somehow, I'm driving it. Everything you love about the M5 CS, this car did it first. Everything you want modern M cars to be, the CRT has. Everything you miss about analog sports cars, the CRT is.
This car is effectively everything I'm trying to modify my E92 M3 to be, and 15 years ago, BMW would just sell it to you, like this. So let's break down why this is possibly the most valuable version of the M3 that's ever existed. The M3 CRT was a more subtle spin-off of the E92 M3 GTS, which was effectively BMW's 911 GT3 fighter of the time. Both the GTS and CRT use a bored and stroked 4.4-liter, naturally aspirated high-revving V8, which is a 0.4-liter and 40 horsepower jump from the standard E9X M3. But that's just one small part of the story. The CRT stands for Carbon Racing Technology, and it was BMW planting their flag on the use of carbon fiber reinforced plastic. And while today CFRP is a dime a dozen on sports cars, this was a huge deal for BMW at the time, as their experimentation with CFRP on the CRT led to the development of the carbon chassised i8 and i3, which weren't super successful, but from then on, carbon was a mainstay feature on special edition M cars.
So, to the untrained eye, you may just look at this car and think, oh, it's just a regular E90 BMW M3. And to the untrained eye, you would be more or less correct. But there's a bunch of tiny little things, and some not so tiny little things, that add up to make this one of the most unique special edition BMWs that's ever been made, period. At least one that you can actually drive on the road and use every day. First thing you're gonna notice are all of the red accents. I don't know the exact name of this paint code, but I will have it right above me so you know exactly what paint code it is. But you have all these red accents all over the car, particularly right here on the hood, which is fully carbon fiber, CFRP, carbon fiber reinforced plastic. And we have a bit more of that down here below on the front lip, which has a painted red accent as well. This lip is specific to the M3 CRT. You couldn't get it on any other version of the M3. But let me pop the hood real quick just so you can get another cool detail. So one thing you're gonna notice when you pop the hood, it just flies open, and that's because it's not an aluminum hood. So latching it and unlatching it takes a lot less effort on the car. But when you open it, you'll notice full carbon fiber, like I said. This one has yellowed a little bit just because it's an old car. It's from 2011. It just comes with age. The carbon's gonna yellow. But then once you open up the bonnet, get past the magnificently light carbon fiber hood, you'll notice we have our engine cover painted in the same frozen silver as the car. That is unique to the M3 CRT and the E92 M3 GTS, which only came in a fire orange color. So the engine cover on that car was painted in fire orange. This one painted in the frozen silver, which is sick. You couldn't get that on a regular M3. Let me just, I love closing this. It's just, compared to my car, it's just, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of glazing in this video if you haven't noticed already. Moving on to the side, also you would assume that there's not many changes being made here to the CRT, but once again, you would be wrong. So coming down below here, we have our typical competition wheels that were available on every competition spec E9X M3. But behind those wheels are upgraded brakes. So one kind of weak point of the E9X chassis in almost every M3 before G80 was having not great brakes. The standard M3s have single piston calipers all around, which is actually kind of crazy, and BMW was low-key wildin' for that. I feel like it should have had at least a 4-pot. So these are upgraded brakes, same that you have on the E92 M3 GTS, and these will help you stop better because you do have more power in this car, which we'll get to a bit later. But also besides that, we have upgraded suspension, we have coilovers, and actually let me show you something real quick. There is a unique coilover adjustment kit that comes with the M3 CRT. Comes in this little packet and says KW and CRT cut out in the styrofoam. It's actually really sick. One of the just tiny little touches you get when you buy an E90 M3 CRT. Then taking a look at the butt, there's not a whole lot of changes being made once again, but we have this really cool carbon fiber lip spoiler that is painted just on the edge in the same red accent color that you have on the rest of the car. So you were able to get carbon fiber spoilers on the M3, but firstly, I don't believe they ever sold any with a matte finish, which this has, and definitely not with a painted accent on the lip of the lip. And then taking a look down below, this is a stock exhaust. It's not modified, but it is the BMW M Performance exhaust, which is slightly different, slightly louder, slightly more exciting than the stock exhaust you would get on a standard E90 M3. But other than that, I mean, it's more or less the same from behind, but it all adds up to being a really cool and unique version of the M3 on the outside. 450 horsepower and 324 pound-feet of torque. That's up from 414 and 295 pound-feet on a standard E90 M3. That's about as big of a jump as modern M cars make today, going from a standard car to a CS or CSL of some sorts. But with today's M cars, BMW can quite literally make those power gains with a click of a button because all the new M's are turbocharged. You just ask the car for more boost from the turbos and you're done. But to get the CRT to 450 naturally aspirated horsepower, BMW had to bore and stroke the engine. So as opposed to just turning up the ones and zeros on a turbocharged car, BMW had to physically widen the width of all 8 cylinders and then modify the engine's crankshaft to increase the amount of travel that the pistons can make. This ain't just a full bolt-on upgrade. And coming from my M3, which has about 400-ish wheel horsepower after some mods and a tune, you can really feel how much more powerful the CRT is when going towards the top end. Accelerating to 60 miles an hour in this car and then slowing down feels like revving out a 911 GT3 to 7,000 RPM when you've still got 2,000 RPM more to go. It just feels like you're cutting the car off early. One thing I've always said about this E90 M3 platform, these cars are not quick, but they are fast as hell, and the M3 CRT is faster as heller. Before hopping in this car and driving it for the first time, the owner of this CRT tried to warn me about the suspension setup. He said that it was a very period-correct set of coilovers, and yeah, he wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. This for sure rides rougher than any other version of the M3 you could have bought aside from the GTS, which is effectively just the coupe sibling of this car. It's 1,000% more stiffly sprung than a standard M3, but it's adjustable, so you can make changes to fit your needs. Right now, it's a bit lower in the rear, actually a lot lower in the rear than a standard M3 on the standard suspension, but that also means it's much more confident in the corners, if you can find any, especially here in Florida. Thank you for being very flat and straight most of the time. That's not been super enjoyable. But in the few corners I do encounter down here in Florida, you can feel how much more confident the M3 is compared to a standard car. You can feel how much better the turn-in is. It's no 911 for sure, but this is truly a track-ready version of the E90 sedan that BMW never sold here in the States. You know, visually, it's a lot more subtle and under the radar than the E92 M3 GTS, but from a performance standpoint, this is effectively just the 4-door version. So don't let the subtlety fool you. This is ready to go to the track, as is. The steering feel is one of my favorite things about this car, and there's really no difference that I can feel as far as steering compared to a standard M3, but because this car is effectively brand new, it just has that very fresh steering feel. Got that classic hydraulic weight and resistance, but it's still just light enough to where you can toss it around without feeling like you're having to fight the car. It just feels perfectly set up, and there's so much feedback you get through the steering wheel, especially with these KW coilover suspension. Call me crazy, but I think this was peak era for a BMW steering feel. I think this is where they absolutely nailed it. All right, the inside of this car is so sick. Honestly, cooler than the E92 M3 GTS. Let's take a look inside. So first things first that you're gonna notice, I'm sitting down in this really cool carbon fiber backed bucket seat. This seat is the holy grail BMW part code. If you can find it, you can't. The rumor online is that this seat is effectively just a Recaro bucket similar to what you have in the E92 M3 GTS, but with a custom upholstery made specifically for the E90 M3 CRT. So you will never be able to buy this part from BMW. You will never be able to get it used. And for whatever reason, no one's made like a replica version of it to my knowledge, but it is quite the looker. It's actually pretty comfortable, supportive as a bucket seat should. And if you're sitting in the back seats, you get a nice, beautiful view. Another really cool thing is this silver carbon fiber. So the famous thing with the M3 of the E9X generation is having this kind of like fake carbon fiber. It has the pattern that makes it look like carbon, but it's not actually carbon. And it is kind of funny because this is the CRT. It's the carbon racing technology E90 M3, but they don't have real carbon trim. At least I don't believe it is. If it is real carbon, someone in the comments let me know if this is just literally the exposed weave, but I believe this is effectively just a fake carbon, but painted in silver, which is something you could not get on any other version of the M3. We have an Alcantara wrapped steering wheel, but there's no stripe on the top. You know, certain variants of the E9X M3, the Lime Rock Park Edition, specifically always had a blue stripe on the middle. This one is stripeless, but it is Alcantara wrapped, which is sick. Another thing I noticed is that there's no comfort access, so you can't unlock the car without using the button. You can't start the car without putting the key inside of the little key slot. You don't have those basic luxury creature comforts that you have or could get on other variants of the M3. And you also have the what appears to be the base or stock sound system in this car as well. To me, this is kind of like the better version of the E92 M3 GTS because you have things like navigation, you have things like air conditioning, you have a few of the nice creature comforts that could make this in theory a daily driver that the E92 M3 GTS does not have. So you have all these tiny little things like the red painted door sill accents, all these just tiny little things that add up to make this one of the most unique special edition M cars ever. Now, something really cool on the rear is the fact that you effectively have rear seat buckets, which you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, all of you hyper BMW nerds. I don't believe BMW has ever sold another sedan outside of the M5 CS that has this effectively what is a rear carbon bucket seat. Well, not carbon, but a rear bucket seat. And they have this really aggressive bolstering to keep you in place. So even though this is kind of the more subtle version of the E92 M3 GTS, they clearly have set this car up to be a spirited driving focus. So even things like the rear seats, you gotta make sure your rear passengers are nice and snug when you know, taking a nice twisty back road or, you know, sliding around on a track. BMW really, they really thought this one through. Something that BMW truly doesn't get enough credit for is how they came out of the gate swinging with an excellent dual clutch transmission in this car. The E9X M3 was the very first car that BMW put a dual clutch transmission into, and the shifts, even compared to modern M cars, are so quick, so responsive, and so engaging. The downshifts on this car, I think, are probably like a quarter of the reason why I wanted to get this car specifically. They're so violent, especially with an aftermarket exhaust and a tune. And there's a weird, interesting quirk with the CRT specifically that I haven't experienced in any other E9X M3, is that when you're slowing down and really get on the downshifts, sometimes it'll kind of skip hop. So as opposed to going ving, ving, it'll kind of ving, ving. This transmission was so ahead of its time. But it's not just the transmission alone in this car that makes it such an epic driving experience. It's the combination of the transmission and this F1 inspired V8. The engine induction node and the exhaust node are everything in this car. It's the perfect combination of that low, grunty, grumbly V8 muscle with the exotic screeching howl of that 8,400 RPM redline. BMW will quite literally never make another V8 as characterful and exotic and sonorous as the S65 V8. Oh, this car is so good. There's so many little quirks with this car that makes the CRT just so cool and unique, like the way the transmission will kind of skip hop on downshifts if you push it hard enough, or the way the car will remember your transmission logic settings between startups, or the fact that the only place you can really put a water bottle is this little halfway open ass cheek thing in the rear. And you can't forget how the much lower driving position of these carbon buckets completely transforms the driving experience compared to a standard car. These CRTs are insanely expensive. To get your hands on one of these in the States could cost you well over $300,000 after it's all said and done. And so the golden question is it worth paying nearly 8 times what it would cost to get a normal E90 M3? Well, on paper, absolutely not, but that's not the point. Aside from the low production numbers, the CRT is so special because it represents the epic crescendo of the BMW that we once knew, while simultaneously paving the way for the BMW that we know today. And that's special. Oh my God!
I've had a few never meet your heroes moments with cars. This was certainly not one of them. As a D1 first round pick, MVP, Hall of Famer, E9X BMW M3 Glazer, this car was everything I hoped it would be. And I'll probably never own this car, but getting to be one of a handful of car reviewers in the world who could say they actually drove one, that's a memory I'll cherish long into my elder years, and a very, very special thanks to the owner of this M3 CRT. I will be forever grateful. Halfway through the production of this video, the CRT actually threw a check engine light and then went into limp mode for the rest of the drive. And some people would look at that as a fail, but the way I see it, that's a BMW doing what a BMW is supposed to do. Thanks for watching.